The story opens with a scene in a deserted park, where our main character, Ramakant, is digging a deep hole to dispose of a corpse. He's never even slapped anyone in his entire life. Today, he's come to bury a corpse. He's at a loss as to which direction the body should be laid underground. But how did ordinary Ramakant get embroiled in this bloody game? The answer lies in the events of a few weeks prior. Then, the story shifts to flashback, and the screen introduces the city's most hypocritical man, MLA Amre. Standing on stage, Amre delivers grand speeches to the media and the public. He claims to have all the city's massage centers and places of ill treatment closed as soon as possible. Outwardly, he pretends to be a true social worker, but the truth is something else. MLA Amre is a completely vile person. He himself indulges in debauchery with women. Furthermore, he keeps 2 women in his own home, with whom he constantly commits despicable acts. Here, the person who takes advantage of his worthless character is Glenn, a boy who works in his own house. As soon as Amre leaves the house for some errand, Glenn, without wasting a second, quietly enters Amre's personal bedroom. He directly removes the memory card from a hidden spy camera and makes his escape. This memory card recorded all of Amre's dark deeds and the dirty acts he committed with those girls. Glenn immediately sends a small clip of the memory card to Amre and demands a huge sum of money. Then we come to Ramakant, the ultimate miser. Ramakant was on the phone, lashing out at the customer service of an agency, alleging that the agency had mistakenly deducted €6 from his account, and Ramakant had ruined his life. He continued to pester the customer care staff until they gave up and promised to refund him €6 the following month. It's here that we learn that Glenn, the blackmailer, and Ramakant live in the same building. In fact, the entire building belongs to Glenn's mother, Mrs. D'Souza, and Ramakant lives there on rent. The scene shifts to Ramakant's wife, Shilpa. Shilpa has a unique taste for television, especially crime shows. She's currently engrossed in watching Hoshiar India, and she's well aware of her husband Ramakant's depravity. She knows the depths of his financial struggles. Therefore, when Ramakant proudly recounts the story of his €6 customer care victory, Shilpa doesn't react at all. Then, Shilpa reveals something that sends Ramakant reeling. She says that the Guruji's daughter who lives next door is getting married, and Shilpa excitedly explains that they'll have a great meal there, but in return, they'll have to give them an expensive gift. Ramakant's breath catches at the mention of an expensive gift. He's devastated that he'll have to shell out a lot of money for free food. It's the next morning. Mrs. D'Souza is sitting at her dining table, munching on toast with great interest. Just then, Ramakant enters. His intention wasn't to meet Mrs. D'Souza, but to get her free breakfast. He starts to make a full deal of his money. He also gives Mrs. D'Souza some constipation powder to help her stomach, as she's been suffering from constipation for quite some time. Then, Ramakant spins a very emotional story about him and Shilpa planning to have a baby. But the burden of rent is too much for them. Using these words, he manages to get Mrs. D'Souza to reduce his rent by €500. Just then, a drunk Glenn arrives. Glenn advises his mother not to fall for this miser's sweet talk. He's fooling them. But Mrs. D'Souza ignores Glenn and shoos him away. Meanwhile, we are introduced to another tenant in the building, Firwani. Vani brought some food items for Mrs. D'Souza, which everyone considers good. Next, we see Ramakant own a perfume shop. But his fraud continues here as well. He packages cheap, local quality perfumes and sells them at a very high price. A man named Gudu Bai arrives at his shop, having brought a stock of genuine imported perfumes from Dubai. However, Ramakant's bargaining troubles even Gudu. Then we see that it's evening, and Ramakant and Shilpa are running late for the wedding. So Shilpa gets ready and goes straight to Ramakant's shop. Her main intention was to buy an expensive gift. Ramakant hesitantly takes out a small perfume from under the counter and says he's already arranged for the gift. Shilpa becomes furious at the cheap perfume. She knew this was Ramakant's miserliness. So, she ignores him and drags him to an electronics store. In the shop, Shilpa spots a premium toaster and immediately decides to gift it. Ramakant is devastated. He folds his hands and tries to convince Shilpa, asking why she needs to spend so much. But Shilpa knows the toaster is quite good, so she insists. Ramakant, unable to resist, buys a toaster worth 5,000 rupees. When they arrive at the Guru's daughter's wedding, Ramakant's grief lingers in his mind. Ramakant brings 2 plates of food, but Shilpa tells him she's already eaten. After giving him a 5,000 rupee toaster, Ramakant wouldn't waste any food. He quietly takes out a plastic bag from his pocket, puts the entire second plate of food in it, and packs it for home. Then, next morning, news breaks that sends the entire area into a tizzy. It turns out, the Guru's daughter's wedding they attended last night was called off mid-stage. The groom's pregnant ex-girlfriend bursts into the wedding hall while the wedding rituals are underway and exposes him in front of everyone. Any normal person would feel sorry for the bride, but our Ramakant's mind is on a different level. He wasn't worried about his bride's grief, but only one question. If the wedding didn't happen, what happened to his 5,000 rupee toaster, and who has it with him now? So, without telling Shilpa, he goes straight to Guruji's house early in the morning. The atmosphere there was quite serious. Ramakant then feigns sympathy. He talks about random things, then slowly gets to the point. Guruji, the marriage is over. So, can I take back the toaster I gave you? Hearing this, Guruji's family members become furious. They yell at him, saying that in grief over the broken marriage, they donated all their expensive gifts to an orphanage that very morning. Hearing this, Ramakant's temper flares. You gave away my expensive toaster to an orphanage? Ramakant immediately arrives at the orphanage and sees Nandini, the orphanage's owner. Nandini is sitting comfortably on a chair, eating toast, with the same new toaster beside her. Ramakant's blood boils. He steps forward and claims, "This toaster is mine. I've come to take it back." But Nandini too is clever. She flatly refuses, saying, "Do you have a bill for it? We received it as a donation. Now it's ours." Then, when Ramakant insists, Nandini and her staff force him out of the orphanage. Angrily, Ramakant calls the electronics shop where he bought the toaster. He asks, "If I bring the toaster back, will I get my 5,000 euro refund?" The shop owner says, "Yes, if you bring it back within 2 or 3 days without using it, you'll get a refund." Ramakant's eyes light up at the very mention of refund. He decides to break into the orphanage and steal his toaster. Ramakant waits a while, and when he gets a chance, he breaks through the orphanage's boundary and sneaks inside. Then, stealthily, he sneaks into the room and takes his toaster. However, as he's running away with the toaster, some of the orphanage children spot him. However, Ramakant manages to escape. But now, he's afraid that if he takes the toaster home and the police arrive, he'll be in trouble. Fearing this, he devises a trick. He discreetly places the new toaster in his landlady, Mrs. D'Souza's, where an old toaster was already kept. The next morning, and exactly what Ramakant had imagined happens. A police team arrives directly at Ramakant's house. An FIR for theft had been filed at the orphanage, and based on the children's testimony, suspicion falls squarely on Ramakant, who had gone there the previous day to ask for the toaster. The police then interrogate Ramakant rigorously. Ramakant lies in his defense, saying he was just leaving the toaster's warranty card and had nothing else on his mind. The police then check his house, but they find nothing and give up, leaving. Meanwhile, Glenn is chatting with an unknown man on his phone. The unknown man is inviting Glenn to a mall in the city for a deal. Glenn thinks he might be getting paid for the blackmail video, Tass, so he's about to leave, Tass fully prepared. Just then, Ms. D'Souza comes into the kitchen and sees that her old toaster is broken. She calls out to Glenn, telling him to take it to the repair shop before leaving. Glenn, in a hurry, accidentally takes the new toaster Ramakant had hidden instead of the old one and then heads for the mall. But Ramakant spots Glenn. He sees Glenn carrying the same new toaster. Ramakant's heart is shaken. Without wasting a moment, he silently follows Glenn. Then, at the mall, Glenn encounters a stranger who turns out to be none other than Inspector Bala. Bala, dressed in civilian clothes, wants Glenn to extract the memory card containing the MLA's video from him at any cost. But Glenn is also very cunning. He realizes from the man's body language that this man is a police officer, and Glenn has a rule that dealing with any policeman is tantamount to death. So he deflects the conversation and leaves, returning home. Returning home, Glenn is utterly terrified. He understands that his memory card is no longer safe anywhere, and that the police are after him. While thinking about this, his eyes fall on the same new toaster. He immediately takes the memory card out of his pocket and hides it in a small space inside the toaster. At that very moment, an incident occurs that shocks everyone in the building. Mrs. D'Souza, who had been suffering from constipation for several days and had been given the powder by Ramakant, is sitting on the toilet. While straining to empty her bowels, she suddenly experiences chest pain and dies in a strange manner on the toilet bowl. Upon hearing the news of her death, the entire building gathers in her courtyard, with Furwani also present. Glenn, devastated by his mother's passing, arrives. Just then, Ramakant arrives and begins a mock emotional speech, saying, "Ms. D'Souza treated me like her own son, and just yesterday, she promised to reduce my rent by 5,000 euros starting next month." Ramakant, in effect, had taken advantage of the situation, even in the face of death. Just then, Ramakant's phone rings, and it's from the toaster vendor. He threatens Ramakant that if he doesn't return the toaster today, he won't get a refund. The pressure mounts, and he desperately needs the toaster, which was currently in Glenn's house. Meanwhile, the toaster contained a memory card containing MLA Amre's misdeeds. Therefore, for Glenn, the toaster was more precious than life itself. The darkness of night has descended. Ramakant dons a burqa to avoid detection and stealthily sneaks into Glenn's house and takes the toaster. But just as he's about to leave the door with the toaster, a drunken Glenn appears. Glenn, so intoxicated, doesn't even recognize who's in front of him. Seeing Ramakant in the burqa, he thinks it's his mother who has returned. But when Ramakant struggles to get away, Glenn's trance breaks, and he realizes it's Ramakant running away with his toaster. A fight ensues between them for the toaster, and they both lunge at each other. Meanwhile, they both head towards the boundary. In the ensuing scuffle, Glenn loses his balance and falls to the ground, dying instantly. Ramakant, watching all this from above, freezes, his limbs shaking. A simple man who came to steal a toaster had become the cause of a murder. Terrified, he's at a loss for words. He gathers courage and decides to tell the police the truth, saying it was all an accident. He immediately calls 100, and a female police officer answers. Ramakant says in a panicked voice, "Ma'am, it wasn't my fault." But then a voice comes from behind the phone. The policewoman was brutally torturing someone. Hearing this, Ramakant immediately hung up the phone, his condition worsening. He immediately took the toaster and returned home. The next morning, Ramakant was standing at the electronic shop, ready to exchange the toaster for his 5,000 euro. He then received a panicked call from Shilpa, who told him, "Ramakant, come quickly. There's been a murder in our building," or some are even saying Glenn committed suicide. Ramakant made an excuse and hung up. He then placed the toaster on the shopkeeper's counter and asked for a refund. The shopkeeper carefully examined the toaster and refused. The policy was that the toaster should be unused. However, the toaster was heavily scratched, apparently due to the toaster falling during the fight. The shopkeeper flatly refuses, saying, "You won't get a refund." But when Ramakant refuses Ekan, he is pushed out. He neither has the toaster nor the 5,000 euro. And on top of that, Nairo, he faces the prospect of death. As Ramakant walks out onto the street, his phone receives a notification from an unknown number. It's a video message. Playing the video, he's stunned. The video clearly shows Ramakant and Glenn fighting fiercely on the rooftop, and Glenn falls down after Ramakant pushes him. The videographer recorded the entire scene. This means Ramakant's neck is now in someone's hands. With trembling hands, he sends a message, asking, "Who are you, and what do you want?" The scene then shifts to Glenn's house. Inspector Bala, along with his entire team, is investigating, but his real objective is to find MLA Amre's memory card, so he searches every corner of the house. His eyes fall on the toaster in the kitchen. But it's old and broken, so he ignores it. Bala, worried, asks his team if anything has been stolen from the house. It turns out nothing was missing. Angrily, Bala calls MLA Amre. "Sir, the memory card wasn't found here." Meanwhile, Shilpa, standing just behind the door, had been listening silently. As Bala leaves, Shilpa, whose mind had become like a detective's after watching Hoshiar India 24/7, approaches Bala and confidently says, "Sir, I already suspected this wasn't a suicide, but a murder." Bala and Amre had a different agenda, but Shilpa was trying to convince them otherwise. Ramakant, fearfully, somehow manages to reach his building. Just then, another message arrives on his phone, telling him to quietly go to room number 206. Ramakant racks his brains and realizes that room number 206 belongs to the simple Furwani. So, he enters the room with trembling steps. The sight inside leaves Ramakant stunned. Furwani was in the restroom. But this time, her cultured facade had completely vanished. She stood before Ramakant, heavily made up, fully prepared, with strange and wicked intentions. Ramakant frightenedly pleads, "Madam, the video must have been made by mistake. I didn't kill Glenn intentionally. It was an accident. Please delete it." But Furwani seems unfazed by the truth. She laughs her wicked laugh and drags Ramakant into a private room. After a while, Ramakant realizes that Furwani doesn't want money for the video, but rather his body. Here, Furwani takes full advantage of Ramakant in his old age. Then, in the evening, when a tired Ramakant arrives home, Shilpa is waiting for him. Shilpa, like a complete detective, explains, "Listen, what happened last night wasn't a suicide. I think a psycho killer has arrived in the city who killed Glenn last night. The inspector told me that if the murderer is caught, he'll be dealt a blow." Hearing this, Ramakant begins to sweat. On one hand, there's the fear of the police, and on the other, there's the blackmailing witch, Furwani, whom Ramakant has become entangled in. After this, Furwani starts calling him 10 times a day, and it's revealed that Furwani hasn't had a man in her life for the past 20 years, and Ramakant has become her puppet, unable to escape her even if he wants to. Meanwhile, MLA Amre's patience has run out. He pressures Bala, fearing that if the video gets out to the media, his entire career will be ruined. Therefore, he asks Bala to find the memory card as soon as possible. Bala believes he must have missed something at Glenn's house, so he sneaks back inside to find the card. However, Shilpa is there again, and she sees Bala's quiet arrival, further strengthening her suspicions about the psycho killer. Ramakant also manages to sneak into Furwani's house, steals his phone, and unlocks the password. He thought that if he deleted the video from his phone, he would be free, but he can't find the murder video anywhere. Then Furwani's voice from behind says, "Don't even try. I've backed up that video so many times on my driver that you won't be able to delete them all your life." This meant Ramakant's last resort was closed. The next day, Ramakant was sitting in his shop. His state seemed deeply troubled. Gudubai noticed his state and asked, "What's wrong, brother? What's bothering you?" Ramakant, completely broken, breaks down in front of Gudubai and tells him the whole truth. He tells him how an old woman is blackmailing him with a fake murder video. Ramakant, with folded hands, pleads with Gudubai, "Brother, you must have some undercover thug or contract killer. Please get that video from that old woman." Gudubai then thinks for a moment, and the brother in him awakens, and Gudubai declares, "I'll do it." Then, with great gusto, he pulls out a pistol and heads straight to Furwani's apartment. Pointing the gun right at Furwani's forehead, he thinks the old woman will spill the beans. But moments later, Ramakant receives a text message from Gudubai, saying, "Your job is done." Ramakant happily goes to Furwani's apartment. But as he opens the door, his eyes widen. A dead body lay on the ground. But it wasn't Furwani's, but Gudubai's. Furwani had been sitting there calmly. But the old woman had actually snatched the gun from Gudubai and shot him. Furwani then told Ramakant, "Come on, son. It's time to show your love. Pick up this body and come with me. I know a place where it will be easy to bury it." And friends, this was the scene where the story began. Ramakant and Furwani were standing in a park at midnight, where Ramakant, drenched in sweat, was digging a hole to bury Gudubai's body. The story then shifted directly to the police station. Nandini, the owner of the orphanage, was standing there, accompanied by the child who had seen Ramakant steal the toaster. The child had confirmed to Bala that Ramakant had stolen the toaster. Bala's brain works, thinking that this must be the toaster in which Glenn hid the memory card. Thinking this, Bala immediately sends his constables, who bring Ramakant from his home to the police station and throw him to the ground. Bala then shouts at him, demanding, "Where is the toaster and the memory card inside?" Before Bala can unleash his baton on Ramakant, Furwani arrives at the police station, determined to let her new toy languish in jail. So she goes straight to Nandini, opens her purse, and hands her exactly €5,000. She then demands, "Take back your complaint now." Nandini, desperate for money, takes the money, and the case is closed. Bala, despite his best efforts, is unable to stop Ramakant. After returning home, Furwani calls Ramakant to her flat, smilingly telling him, "I have good news for you. I'm going to be a mother, and you're the father of this child." Hearing this, Ramakant's mind goes completely haywire. An old woman he'd forced time with was pregnant with his child. In a panic, Ramakant runs straight to the rooftop, crying out to the sky, and prays to God. "Oh God, what's happening to me? I just stole a 5,000 minus rupee toaster." A scuffle ensued, and Glenn was killed. Then the old woman started blackmailing him, and Gudu died too. Now, I don't know what that memory card is that the policeman is after. Bala, standing quietly behind him, overhears all this. Bala grabs Ramakant by the neck and says, "Ooh, the whole thing is in that toaster. My suspicion was correct. Now, tell me where it is." Ramakant, terrified, tells the truth. "Sir, I hid that toaster at Furwani's house yesterday out of fear." Bala then pulls out his gun and runs towards Furwani's apartment. A short while later, when Ramakant fearfully arrives, he sees another body lying on the floor. Inspector Bala's. The dangerous old woman had brutally murdered the inspector as well. Seeing this, Ramakant sits down with his head in his hands, as he had just disposed of one body, and now another has fallen upon him. Then, in the dark of night, Ramakant and Furwani bring Bala's body and dig a pit to bury it in the same park. But this time, their plan is exposed. Shilpa was watching from behind a tree, and we all know that Shilpa already works like a detective. Just as Ramakant begins to bury the body, Shilpa rushes forward and shouts, "What is going on? Why are you, in cahoots with this old woman, burying a body here at night after committing a murder?" Seeing Shilpa, Ramakant's senses are shaken. Before anyone can say anything, the inspector's body in the pit begins to move. Bala wasn't dead. He was just unconscious. Then, he brushes the mud off his face and climbs out of the pit. He's holding a gun and shouts, "Old woman, you thought I'd die easily, but you didn't treat me right, so now you'll have to die. I just need that toaster and that memory card." Hearing this, Furwani's mind becomes a little confused, because the plot twist was that Furwani had hidden the memory card containing the blackmailing video of Ramakant in the same toaster out of fear. Both were confused as to which memory card the inspector was referring to. Inside the toaster were two memory cards. One contained a video of MLA Amre, and the other contained a video of Ramakant. But the question remained, where did the toaster go? Just then, a siren sounds in the distance, and the inspector summons MLA Amre to the scene for backup. Amidst the commotion, Shilpa, flaunting her arrogance, swiftly snatches Bala's gun. Everyone's attention is drawn to the object Ramakant had been holding as a pillow under the inspector's head in the pit, a toaster. Ramakant had always carried this toaster with him to keep evidence. Shilpa, holding the gun, cries out, "Someone tell me the truth about the relationship between this toaster, this memory card, and this old woman." Then, Furwani brazenly declares, "There's a deep connection between this worthless husband of yours and me, and I'm pregnant with his child." Hearing this, Shilpa's heart sinks, as the husband she knew betrayed her. Ramakant then falls to his knees, weeping, and tells Shilpa the story of his ordeal from beginning to end. How, in order to save a $5,000 toaster, he became embroiled in this scandal. But the drama didn't end there, as Shilpa was in shock. Furwani seized the opportunity and swiftly snatched the gun from Shilpa's hand, leaving the old woman in complete control. However, in the scuffle, Ramakant drops the toaster and drops it to the ground, revealing both memory cards inside. Seeing the memory cards, Bala leaps toward them. Without hesitation, Furwani shoots Bala in the forehead, killing him for real. Furwani points the gun directly at Ramakant and Shilpa, but the gun has run out of bullets. Seeing this, Shilpa attacks Farwani, but Yasharwani too is no amateur. She begins to pick Shilpa up and throw her down. Seeing Shilpa being beaten, Ramakant awakens the inner masculine spirit within him. Who dares touch my wife? Ramakant and Shilpa, husband and wife, attack the old woman. Finally, Farwani screams in anger and runs towards them, but Shilpa cleverly steps aside, and Farwani loses her balance. She falls directly from a high railing onto the rocks, killing the old woman instantly. The scene has now become quiet. Just then, MLA Amri's voice rings out from behind. Amri steps out of his car, bends down, and picks up one of the fallen memory cards. His eyes sparkle with the thought, "I've found my memory card." He looks at Ramakant and asks, "Do you know what's inside it?" Ramakant replies in a frightened voice, "No, sir, I don't know anything. But sir, will you listen to me? If you insert this card into a mobile phone or laptop, hackers can hack your data. Therefore, it's safer to destroy this evidence right here." Amre then finds logic in Ramakant's words, and being such a psycho, he chews the memory card with his teeth and walks away. But the real twist, friends, was that the second memory card lying on the ground, which Amre hadn't seen, contained Amre's video, and the memory card he ate contained the video of Glenn's death. This meant Ramakant's tension was relieved because Amre had eaten the evidence. Amre then leaves them both alive, his work complete. Afterward, Shilpa and Ramakant were standing alone. Shilpa's eyes were filled with tears, her heart broken. She asked Ramakant, "Tell me something, Ramakant, about the strange situation you were in. If I were in that situation, would you forgive me?" Ramakant replied with a sincere heart, "You've hit the nail on the head. I would definitely forgive you, because I was truly trapped in a place from which there was no way out." Hearing this, Shilpa's heart melts and she embraces him. We then see a scene sometime later. It's Ramakant and Shilpa's anniversary, and Shilpa gets ready with great anticipation. She hopes that at least today, her husband will forget all her worries and take her to a 5-star hotel for dinner. But Ramakant is Ramakant, after all. He brings her to a langar in the city and says, "Well, enough of eating outside." But Shilpa doesn't say anything, knowing her husband well. The movie ends there. Friends, let us know in the comments which movie you want explained.